Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm quite excited. I am bringing you my first page-to-picture review. So this is something I've been wanting to do for a little while on my channel, just haven't quite got around to doing it until now, but this is the first one. So hopefully this will be an ongoing series, not a regular thing, but from time to time. So this will be a review comparison of a book and a film. So the film adaptation of the book, because I love books and I love movies, and I just felt there was something that I've not seen very many people do, and it's something that I'm quite interested in, how when they come to adapt a book to make it into a film, particularly how they go about deciding what bits to include, what bits to adapt, what bits to leave out. There's slightly more choices to make, I think, when going from a book to a film than to a TV series, because TV series being longer you get to include more. So I'm mainly going to be doing books to films, but I might in future do books to TV series as well. I haven't decided yet, but for now, all of that to explain, this is my first page-to-picture review, so I thought that was quite a fun little name for them. And this is going to be about the book/film, which is called Lion by Saroo Brierley. This was originally published under the title A Long Way Home, but when they made the film of it, the film is called Lion, and then they reissued the book under that name as a sort of tie-in. So you can see I've got the movie tie-in edition of the book. That's because I got this cheap in a supermarket. It was like £2 or something, because I really wanted to read it, having seen the film. So let's do a synopsis and then I'll tell you a little bit about both of them and what I thought, and a little bit of a comparison. So I'm not going to hold both of them, I'll just hold the book. So Lion, or A Long Way Home, is a true story. It is based on the author Saroo Brierley's actual life, his experiences. He was born in India, in sort of quite a remote region. It had sort of reasonable transport links by train, and that sort of is quite central to his story. So he grew up in a small rundown house with his mother, who worked as a labourer, 2 older brothers and a younger sister. His father left when he was very young, and he didn't really have much contact with him, so he was really brought up by his mother and his older brothers. Both his older brothers had to work from a very young age, as did Saroo. They couldn't afford education, and they scraped together an existence, making money where they could, buying what food they could, and scavenging and foraging when they couldn't. When Saroo was about 5 or 6 years old, he decided to go out one night with his eldest brother Gudu, who was trying to make money on trains by pickpocketing or picking up scraps or that sort of thing. And Saroo was meant to be staying home to keep an eye on his sister, but insisted on going with Gudu. But by the time they got to the station in the next town where Gudu was going to work, Saroo was very tired because it was quite late at night, so Gudu leaves him sleeping on a bench while he goes off to make some money. And then Saroo wakes up a few hours later. He's alone in this train station. He says in the book that he doesn't know what came over him. He just kind of felt a bit lost. He didn't know where his brother was, what time his brother would be coming back, so he just decided to get on this train that was waiting in the station to see if his brother was on it. And before he knew it, he had fallen asleep on the train, and when he woke up, the train was in motion. And so he finds himself in Calcutta, and he has no way of getting home. He can't even really remember what the name of his hometown is. Well, he thinks he remembers, but he's not pronouncing it correctly, and he doesn't know how far he's travelled because he was sleeping on and off on the train. So he doesn't know where he's from. He can't communicate that. He also speaks Hindi, whereas in Kolkata they predominantly speak Bengali, so he struggles to communicate with anyone there. So he is living on the streets of Kolkata for several months. He has various run-ins with various dangerous things, dogs, older boys, people that are going to do him harm, and then eventually he meets this teenager who takes pity on him and gives him food for a couple of days, and then takes him to the police, who transfer him to an orphanage where he is registered as lost. They try and find his parents. Obviously they don't actually know where his parents are, so they can't actually find his mum, and so eventually he's declared a social orphan essentially, and is transferred to an orphanage from where he's adopted by an Australian family. So he is taken to Australia to his new adoptive family. They also later adopt another boy from India called Mantosh, and the two boys grow up very much knowing that they're loved and accepted by their new Australian parents, but also shaped by their experiences. Although he's very confident, very happy in his new life, Saru always feels this slight longing to know what has become of his birth family. He never quite loses this pull, and then when he becomes a student about 20 years later, he meets some Indians on his course, and it just sort of reawakens his longing to find his family. And they mention this new technology, Google Earth, which may be able to help him track down his hometown. So he starts his painstaking search based on his very fragmented memories of where he grew up and the scenes around the train stations and the names of the train stations that he can't quite remember accurately, to try and find his way home. That's the basic story. That is Saru's life story, essentially. I don't think I can keep these reviews spoiler free because of the comparisons I'm going to make, just to say that. So I will probably cover what happens later in the story as I'm comparing the book and the film. So the plus points of the book, as I was reading it, it's very beautifully written. Saru has a really lovely writing style. It's quite an easy read as well, but it does cover some quite dark topics. So there's scenes of bullying and some violence and sort of dangerous situations that street children might find themselves in. There's also the description of some of, it's not very detailed description, but there's reference to some of the experiences particularly Saru's brother Mantosh had in the orphanage that some people might find upsetting, but it's very well written. I like the background that it gives as to both his families and to various other people, such as the woman who runs the adoption agency that helped him. It was a really good book. I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed the book. So the film, I actually didn't know there was a book until after I'd seen the film. The film was one of my favourite films of 2017. I think that was the year it came out. I think it came out sort of end of 2016, beginning of 2017. I'm sure I saw it 2017 in the cinema. And my friend recommended it to me because she said it was beautifully made, and it really, really is. It is beautifully shot, it's very cinematic. The soundtrack is also really atmospheric and really helps to convey the story. The acting is brilliant. The boy that they found, I don't remember his name, Sunny Power, who plays young Saru, is fantastic for a child actor. It's just brilliant. In terms of the other casting, Nicole Kidman plays his Australian mother, Anne, and I think again that was very well cast. Saru himself is played by Dev Patel, who again is a brilliant actor, although with the casting of his mother with Nicole Kidman actually does look a little bit like Saru's mother. I'm not convinced that Dev Patel really looks that much like Saru, but you know, you can't win them all. There is some resemblance there. Anyway, Dev Patel is a brilliant actor and very nice to look at. I really loved the film and I still really love it. I really loved it when I saw it in the cinema. It's very moving. There were a lot of moments that made me quite tearful, even more so in the book. I think the book, you feel a bit more detached from it, although at the same time you get Saru's insights into what he remembers of how he was thinking and feeling, but because it is a memoir, it's not that imminent, if that makes sense. So there sort of is that bit of feeling of distance from the story, whereas the film is very impactful because it's very to the moment. So they're very impactful in different ways. So obviously the book is more detailed in terms of the story, and actually when I was reading it there were things that I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember this from the film, and then when I watched the film again that scene wasn't in there. So I suppose that there is a similarity of there are other films about Indian street children that maybe have that sort of element of the story in it. That's what I'm remembering. But as with most book to film adaptations, there is more detail in the book, and the book continues the story after the film ends. So the film very much ends with Saru. This is where I'm going to go into spoilers. If you don't want to hear spoilers, I would say probably stop watching now, but rest assured that both the book and the film are very, very good, and I highly recommend both of them. But I'm now going to go into a bit more of a spoilery aspect of the review, so if you don't want to know what happens, then I'll say goodbye for now. Okay, so the film ends with Saru being reunited with his mother in India. The climax of the film is that point where he meets his family again and he contacts his family back in Australia to say, it's just answered my questions, but I still love you, I'm still your son, you're still my parents, I just have two families now. So that was a really lovely way to end the film. And it also, a really lovely thing is that because of the media attention that Saru got from his reunion with his family, they made when his adoptive parents went out to meet his biological family, it was actually filmed, and the film includes the clip of Saru and both his mothers when his mothers meet for the first time, and it was just beautiful. It actually made me cry a little bit. So that's where the film ends. The book does actually continue a little bit longer and covers a second visit that Saru makes where he tries to retrace his journey from his village to Calcutta and tries to figure out actually what that journey was like and relive it, and then he also is reunited with the lady from the adoption agency that helped him. I really enjoyed that bit of the book, but I understand why the film ends where it does, because that is the climax. And I think also because of the rating, this is rated as a PG, I think they have downplayed the dangers of living in Calcutta, which it takes up more time in the book. They tend to skip that a little bit, so you see a little bit of some of what Saru faced. There's a scene in the film which is based on a scene in the book but is done slightly differently, where Saru is taken in by a lady who then apparently seems to be trying to pass him on to a trafficker, done slightly differently in the film to the way it is in the book. So that is one scene. There's also another scene where the men snatch a load of the street children and Saru runs away, so that happens in both, but there were more scenes of some of the dangers Saru faced in the book, obviously for time, but I also think because of keeping it a PG rating, they didn't want to make it too traumatic for the viewers. My only real criticism of the film on rewatching it, having read the book now, is that it over dramatises the relationships within his adoptive family. So in the book, Saru does mention some of the issues his brother Mantosh has because he was in the orphanage for longer, but I think these are over exaggerated in the film, and it's implied that Mantosh has gone completely off the rails, which I didn't get that impression from the book. It may be that is true and it's just something that Saru, in writing about his life, didn't want to express, but I got the impression it's been added for dramatic effect. And also in the film there seems to be sort of a breakdown in communication between Saru and his adoptive parents when he starts looking for his hometown, which again, I didn't get that impression from the book. They seem to be a very close-knit family anyway, and although he doesn't actually tell them about what he's doing, it's implied in the film that he has distanced himself from his family while he's doing it, but I didn't get that sense from the book. One of the things that I really liked the way they did it in the film was they sort of included flashbacks and memories of Saru's childhood and his time particularly with his older brother Guju, and his mother were sort of dropped in at moments throughout adult Saru's storyline, almost like the ghosts of his past that are haunting him, that are driving him forward, which I thought was a really lovely touch and actually gave the film a bit of impact, because you know it from the book that Saru is thinking about those things and he's thinking about his family, and so I thought that was a really good way of presenting that in the film, because obviously in the book it's told first person, you get that train of thought, whereas in the film you can't see inside the character's mind. So that's the way that they've done it, of sprinkling in those little details, those memories. The only other thing that I didn't really like, although I do understand why they did it, is the fact that they changed the name of the story. I really like the original title, A Long Way Home, because I think that actually explains what the book/film is about, whereas Lion is not explained in the film. It's explained in the book partway through, it's not explained in the film till right at the very end. So you learn that Saru's actually been mispronouncing his name his whole life. His name was actually Sheru, which is Hindi for lion. So that's why they've called the film and the book that. And it does sum up Saru's character, because he's very tenacious. He's had to fight down a lot. He's had to be very brave to keep going, and he was very fortunate to have survived as long as he did on the streets of Calcutta, and he's very aware of that. So I think there is that aspect of it. It does sort of explain Saru's character a little bit, but actually it's kind of an obscure title. I'm not too sure about it. Having said that, it doesn't detract from the story at all. So there you have it. highly recommend both the book and the film. Maybe don't watch the film right after you read the book like I did, because I didn't enjoy the film the second time around as much, but only because I had literally just finished reading the book, because I wanted to have all my thoughts ready so I could film this review today. But I do really, if you like non-fiction, if you like memoirs, definitely read this one. If you're at all interested in adoption in India, in third culture kids, which are children who are from one country / culture who end up growing up in a different one. Very fascinating book, very well written, and the film is, as I say, just beautifully shot, really well acted, and conveys the heart of the story, even if it takes some artistic liberties in a few places. So, highly recommend both film and book. Yay! Right, thank you so much for watching this, my first page to picture review. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments if you've read the book or seen the film that I've talked about and what you thought of them. And if you like this and would like to see more of this type of content, please let me know, because as I say, I love books, I love films, I love adaptations, so it's something I am looking to do more of. Yeah, so chat to me down in the comments. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more content from me, and you can ring the little notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload a video. You can also follow me on my social media. That information will be in the description box below. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon.